Good morning, everyone. Recently on Xiaohongshu or on YouTube, I've been posting more about exam results and the achievements of children who have passed their exams. But today, in this video, I want to say a few words to all the children who didn't succeed in this round of exams. I think first of all, it's important to remember that exams always inherently possess an element of chance, so please don't start doubting all the diligent and dedicated hard work you've meticulously put in just because of the outcome of this one particular exam. I can personally be a very good and reliable witness to that fact. I know how much effort you have put into this. So this exam absolutely does not define your future. In fact, as we all know when we look back later, this exam is actually just a very, very small event in your whole life. It's just one experience. So no matter what the result is, it won't have such a huge, irreversible impact on your future life. That's the first point. The second thing I want to tell everyone is that in Australia, especially since we live here, we are surrounded by different opportunities. That is to say, if you truly believe in your own abilities, then you definitely won't go unnoticed. And you also have you could say that starting from next year, you'll have the opportunity to apply for the selective high school exams every year and once again have the chance to get into the selective high school you want. So everyone, don't let this one incident make you doubt yourself or think, I'm just going to give up, right? That's not right, okay? And there's no need for that because we still have plenty of opportunities to pursue our dreams again. So today, I just want to tell all of you to share with both students and their parents some important points to note about the selective high school exam intake from year 8 to year 11, as well as the steps we need to take to apply. I want to talk to everyone about this knowledge in this area. All right, so as we know, for the selective high school exam, apart from the year 7 intake, which has a statewide unified exam, actually from year 8 to year 12 throughout this entire process, each school also has its own individual admission process, meaning that students can apply to take the entrance exams for different selective schools. So I've summarized a few key points for everyone here. First, the application process can start as early as year 7 and goes up to year 10, while enrollment is from year 8 to year 11. This is because, as we know, by year 12, students are preparing for their final exams. So that year is basically students generally won't transfer in that year. So from year 7 to year 10, you can start applying at any time. So there's really no need for parents or students to get upset, okay? Just take a short break after, and then you can start the process. So starting from June next year, you'll actually have the opportunity to apply again for year 8, and you'll have the chance to get into the selective high school you want to attend. That's the first point. The second point is that this time there won't be a statewide unified exam like before. Instead, each school will decide on their own. This exam will be determined by each individual school. For each school, you have to apply separately. If you want to go to a particular school, you need to go to that school's website and submit an individual application. That's the second point. The third point is that each school will use its own criteria to decide which students to admit and which not to admit. It's not like the current system where everyone is ranked based on their exam scores. There are some differences from school to school, but as far as I know, most schools still decide which students to admit based on the child's exam results and their overall academic performance at school. Many parents have told me that all the students admitted are from selective schools, or that the student was already in a selective school. Well, how should I put it? From my experience, I've found that both selective and non-selective students have opportunities. However, there is one thing I can say with some certainty. When schools are making these decisions, more often than not, they still distinguish students mainly based on their academic performance. All right. And then the application process each year starts in June. At that time, you can check the Ministry of Education's website or the individual school's website for more information. The application process starts in June, and then the results are released between September and October each year. So the whole process is very short. Basically, from the time you apply, you'll know the outcome in about 3 to 4 months. So it's really fast. That's why kids, cheer up. There isn't that much time for us to feel upset or frustrated. There's really no need for that. If you truly want it, you can immediately start preparing for the next opportunity. So that's the first point. The second point is about the general application process. Starting from June, when you apply, you go to the websites of the various schools. I see that most schools now offer online applications. You just fill it out online, pay the fee, and that's it. Some schools require you to download the application form, fill it out, and then mail it in. That's another thing. Also, each student can apply to 3 schools, up to 3 schools. However, this time there is no priority ranking among the 3 schools. There is no longer any priority ranking, so as long as you meet the necessary requirements, they will send you an offer. When the time comes, you can make a choice. If you receive more than one offer, you can decide which one to accept or which one to decline. All right, that's basically your timetable. Next, let's talk about the entire application process, specifically the processing of your application. The main thing the schools consider, as I mentioned earlier, is that academics are still the primary factor. This includes your Year 7 school transcript, possibly your NAPLAN results, or other relevant documents related to academics, such as the AMC exam or other similar achievements. Any certificates related to academic achievements can also be submitted to the school as part of the materials for their consideration. At the same time, many schools will have an entry test, and this entry test is quite important. It serves as a basic screening criterion for selecting students. Not all schools require it, but from what I know, most of the schools we are familiar with do have it. As for the test, there are 2 types. One is called HAST, and the other is called EduTest. These are the only 2 types. These tests are created by 2 local institutions in Australia. Later on, I will give you a brief introduction to these 2 types of exams. In addition, there are other aspects to consider, such as if your child has participated in any other activities at school or elsewhere. If your child has performed well in other areas, things like non-academic transcripts can also be submitted to the school. All of these are factors that schools consider when deciding whether to admit a student. Next, I'll briefly talk about these 2 exams. One is called the Hustler exam. The website is already posted here. This exam is designed by an institution in Melbourne called ACER. The other one is called EduTest. I've also put the website here, so if you have time, you can take a look. The types of exams are similar. Both of these actually evolved from the original GA model used in the earliest selective exams. Basically, they're all divided into math, verbal reasoning, reading comprehension, and writing. These are the 4 main categories. If any of you are interested in this exam in the future, you can check out the website. Each of these websites offers some sample questions for purchase. They sell sample questions that you can download and buy for your children to try out, so they can get a sense of the difficulty of the exam. However, for students taking the test from Year 7 to Year 8, I think the knowledge they've accumulated while preparing for the selective stage is sufficient. In my opinion, it's enough. What children might need more is some practice, or to become more familiar with the types of questions, since the exam format might be a bit different. But in terms of knowledge, I think it's absolutely sufficient. Also, there's one more thing I want to mention to everyone, which is these 2 exams are recognized by many schools. That means on the day of the exam, if a child only applies to one school and takes the exam at that school, then that score will also be recognized by these other schools. In other words, the child is eligible to apply to other schools that accept this exam. I've listed some of them here for you to see. For example, for the HAST exam, in addition to the main prominent ones, there are schools like 4th Street, JRV, Gosford, Macquarie Fields, Manly Peninsula, and Sydney Tech. These educational institutions all recognize the HAST exam, which is a significant assessment. As for the EduTest, schools like James Roos, North Sydney Boys, North Sydney Girls, and Sydney Girls all recognize this exam. So if your child takes the EduTest and applies to Balcombe Hills, you might as well also apply to James Roos or North Sydney Boys or Girls for your child. After all, they all accept this exam. So since you're applying anyway, I think you might as well apply to all 3 schools. All right, that's a general overview of these 2 exams. If you have any questions, feel free to leave me a message later, and I can further explain this matter to everyone. Now, about the offers, here's how it works. When the results come out, you need to pay attention to the offers because some offers might be released quite late. For example, if a student receives an offer, the school might need to call them and ask you, are you coming or not? If that student declines, then the offer will be released immediately. When this happens, sometimes the school will contact you directly and let you know, I have an offer available now, do you want to take it? Normally, they could ask you to reply within 48 hours. So when the time comes after you've finished your exams and it's getting close to when the results are released, first, make sure to keep an eye on your phone. Also, I think it's a good idea to get in touch with the school and ask about your child's situation, how things are going right now. Whatever you do, don't miss out because of this. If you happen to miss this crucial kind of communication, you might unfortunately not receive an official invitation for a potential late offer. Secondly, there's a noticeable bit of a difference when it specifically comes to the reserve list, particularly the comprehensive list for students in year 8 all the way through to year 11. It is only valid for the exam in that particular year. Once that year has passed, it's over. For example, if you didn't get in during year 8 and you want to apply to the same school again in year 9, you need to submit a new application, even if it's for the same school. You can't just say, oh, I applied once or twice before and didn't get in, so I'll just keep using that application. That's not allowed. You have to submit a new application each time. This is something I want to remind everyone to pay attention to. So if your child is truly willing to do this, I think the steps we need to prepare are, first of all, to decide which school we want to go to, which school to choose. This also needs to be decided first. Previously, I posted some articles about how to choose a school, considering things like transportation, distance, curriculum, and so on, to help your child pick a school. After choosing the school, then we can go to the school's website to confirm the application and exam dates for your child. Generally, the application is in June, and the exams are usually about 2 months later, around July or August. So you must make sure to confirm these dates and not miss them. Don't miss the application deadline. The second and third steps are to prepare the necessary documents. The school's website will tell you exactly what materials are required. If you need to prepare for a test, then you should get ready for that as well. Go to the relevant websites to download any necessary materials, whether digital or physical, and make all the preparations you need. And then, when the school is about to release the results, parents should pay attention and keep in touch with the school to stay updated on any developments. All right, at this point, I'd like to say one more thing to the kids. That is, the selective exam is just a very small thing in your whole life. Okay, what I really, really hope is that all of you can, through this exam, no matter what your result is, never doubt yourself. The efforts you have made in the past still count, and as long as we still have opportunities, none of this is irreversible, right? There will be more chances ahead. As I just mentioned, you have opportunities like this every year, so I especially hope that every one of you can, on your future learning journey, no matter which path you choose, keep moving forward steadily and diligently. Then in the future, you will definitely find a path that belongs to you. All right, that's all for today. Thank you, everyone.